Hi, and welcome to Kicksaw's newsletter. Today, I'm going to demonstrate how to use Apex-defined variables and invocable Apex actions in Flow. For full details on all of this, including the code used, see the accompanying write-up. The video, due to time constraints, is going to skim over a few things. First, let's take a look at the data we'll be working with, accounts and their contacts, and the activities on those contacts. We want to know for each account which contacts have the most activities. We've created fields Contact 1, Contact 2, and Contact 3 to store the top 3 busiest contacts for each account. Each account has a number 0 through 4. All except account 3 are marked as strategic accounts, and the flow has entry criteria that limit it to working on strategic accounts, so we won't expect to see any rankings on test account 3. Each contact is named in the format test, account number, contact number. And due to the way I generated all this data, the higher the contact number, the more activities it has. So when we see these contacts ranked in order of most activities, we expect the higher contact numbers first and the lower contact numbers last. You may notice that we've got no contact 3s in the display here. That's because I previously marked them all as inactive. So we're going to go look at the contacts and reactivate all our contact 3s so that they show up in the rankings when we next run the flow. The flow uses filters on the Get Records elements so as to limit it to only active contacts. In this flow, I'm going to make use of an Apex-defined variable that I call intMap4Flow. It's a single variable that you can think of as a lightweight object that has two properties or fields, a key and a value. The key is a string that will store a contact ID, and the value is an integer that will store the count of activities that contact has participated in. In the flow, we'll make a collection of these Apex-defined variables that we can then rank in descending order by that value, so we can find the contacts with the highest activity counts. I'm also going to make use of an Apex-defined invocable action that will let me pull a single intMap4Flow out of a collection by its index number, which is a way of getting the first, second, third, and so on items out of a collection. Now to look at the flow. It's a scheduled flow that runs weekly and looks at every strategic account in the org. I created a couple of important variables and a formula that I'll show you now. First, I have a single variable of my Apex-defined type, intMap4Flow, and it's called recIntMap for record integer map. Next, I have a collection of those Apex-defined variables called rcallIntMap for record collection of integer maps. Finally, I have a few integers that I use to hold the number of events and tasks and the contacts in the rcallIntMap, as well as a formula, an activity sum, that adds the number of tasks and events together for a total count of activities. First, the flow clears out the contact 1, 2, and 3 fields on the account, so a previous week's rankings will be removed. Then it gets all the active contacts on the account and checks to make sure there's something to work with. Next, it uses an unofficial SF component to grab all the contact IDs and put them in a text collection variable. I could have done this with a loop, but I already had the unofficial SF collection processors for Flow installed in my org, so I went ahead and used this one to save myself the loop. I use the outputs of that element to grab all the tasks and events where the affiliated contact's ID is in the text collection. So now I've got all the tasks and all the events that are associated with all the active contacts on my strategic account. Then I check to see if I've got some tasks or events to work with. Next, I loop through the active contacts one by one, and I use filter elements to limit the tasks and events I got outside the loop to only the ones affiliated with the contact that the loop is currently handling. After filtering down my tasks and events, I use an assignment element to count them and to assign the contact's ID to my Apex-defined variable recIntMap key and the sum of those tasks and event counts to my recIntMap value. If that formula, nActivitySum, is not 0, I add that recIntMap to the rcall_intMap collection. Then I loop over the next contact and do it all again until I've processed all the contacts. After that, I've got a collection of Apex-defined variables that hold contact IDs and their activity counts. I sort that collection in descending order of activity count so that when I take the first item, I get the busiest contact on the account. I use an assignment to count how many entries are in that collection, and based on that count, I branch the flow to call my Apex action the correct number of times. If there are 3 or more contacts in the rcall_intMap, I get the first 3 items. Index values 0, 1, and 2. For fewer contacts, I use the Apex action fewer times. I assign the contact IDs from the index locations to the fields on the account, and then I commit that change in Salesforce so that it's written to the account in a persistent way. And that's it for the flow. As I said at the beginning, full details are in the write-up. And now I can set this to run in the next 2 minutes, and cooking show style, we'll skip over the waiting, and I'll take you back to the data to see how the flow has changed it. As I mentioned, we should expect no results for account 3, but we should see some of these contacts, number 3, pop up in the results now that they are all active again. So I'll save, and then I'll activate this flow so that it runs for us, and then we'll return to the data. As you can see, there are no contact 3s within the listings. And test account 3 is not a strategic account, so we'll see no results there. And now I'm going to refresh the page so that the new data pops in, and we see that test accounts 2 and 0 have had test contact 3s added to their rankings. And when we click on Test 24, Testerson 24, we will see that there are 4 events and 4 tasks, so 8 activities for that contact. And then when we return to the test account and look at the next contact in the rankings, number 3, we see only 3 events and 3 tasks, so 6 activities for that contact. That's how the flow has ranked them by activity counts. Thanks for your time.